Another video, people. So this little video is just going to be more of me jawing and talking. But what I want to go over real quick, and I found this to be very, very important, and without even really realizing it. But what I want to talk about is vacuum, engine vacuum in particular. Sucks, right? This is going to be a little different. Well, not different, but this is something that a lot of people don't talk about on these cars, on the RX-7s in particular, the FC Turbo 2s. I mean, it can apply to almost any vehicle, really. But this is the intake manifold. Hang on one second. Let me try and see if my view is correct here. Sorry for the vibration, everybody. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. Ooh, that's beautiful view right there. Okay. This is the intake manifold here and the throttle body of an RX-7 Turbo 2. Missing a little bit over here. Part got broke. It's old. Things are brittle, so when you mess with these, you got to be very, very careful. But anyway, I digress. Something that I learned is that there's a bunch of vacuum ports. You see some vacuum lines here, see some vacuum lines here, and 80s vacuums lines were really, really weird. They were interesting. And then, but what I want to talk about is all these ports down here in particular. So I have these ports, and then on the other side here, I have some over here as well. And I have this one kind of looped back. I bought these things off everyone's favorite online store, and the old ones started to crack. These are all vacuum caps. They started to crack and deteriorate, and I hadn't even had them on very long. And so I took some regular vacuum line and just kind of hooped these two together. These two are going to be, or these three rather, are going to be facing the front of the vehicle or to you when you're looking in the engine bay. These two are not going to be used, and then this one is going to be used, and I'll tell you what I'm going to use that for here in just a minute. But these ones in particular, I have the throttle body off on this one for my neighbor to sandblast the intake manifold. See how shiny it is. Make it really clean and pretty. And so I had to clean everything out. And I had this can of mass airflow sensor cleaner just laying around, and these things don't really use mass airflows when you start removing a lot of the emission control system off of them and you tune them and everything else. You pop the mass airflow sensor out. And then you rely solely on your barometric pressure sensor, or MAP, and O2 sensor. So I took this off. And then when I was cleaning it, I noticed how every one of these ports was spraying through a different hole somewhere in the manifold. And then it occurred to me that not all vacuum ports are created equal. So I got the vacuum diagram out for the car and was poking and prodding around in that one, and I realized that I had this thing backwards. I had this line going over here and this one over here, and then I had this check valve on the manifold side, which what this does is it goes over to another little valve on this side, and it controls the secondaries, these guys, during warm up. So it's got this here is like a little thermo switch that's controlled by engine coolant. So warmer engine coolant allows this valve to open up and allow vacuum to travel, or it shuts vacuum off. And then this is just a one-way check valve. Here you want the arrow going back towards this thermal valve, and it basically stops. It just keeps it from working, or keeps it working when there is no vacuum being pulled on the engine, or being in boost. But anyway, digressing back. I'm sorry, everybody. But not all vacuum ports are created equal. So what I had to do is I went back to the manual and I mapped this out. And since I've done some modifications on the car, a lot of vacuum lines have changed, or there's been parts that got removed that normally required vacuum. I wanted to go back through and figure out which ones go where. So to talk about this for just a second, I want to tell you guys where these all go. So I marked them IS, OIL or oil, and then IP, and then this one here BB, and then this one TV. So what I did was this top one here goes to the injectors on the secondary side. So there's a vacuum port down on the primary or on the secondary injectors, and it kind of bridges the injectors together, and I'll show you in just a second. And then this oil is going to the oilers, the oil injectors that are on the engine for the oil metering pump. It's a little larger, so you can't really mistake it. This one on the bottom is labeled IP or injector primary. So on the primary fuel injectors, if you look down in the engine bay, and I can show you here shortly, you'll see a little vacuum line that sits between the two primary fuel injectors. So that before I had a vacuum line going from that one to that one on the actual engine itself, and it was probably messing things up, and I didn't even realize. And of course, BB stands for brake booster. This one's really large. We all know that goes to the brake booster because it uses engine vacuum. And then TV stands for the thermal valve, which is going to be this little valve here. You can see that line running there. This other one here is, I need to clean up a little bit, but that's for coolant. And then, of course, you have this valve over here that has nothing to do with the vacuum at all, but this is your BAC bypass air control valve. This controls your idle and when the engine's cold and when the engine's warm. But on this throttle body here, you have your primary port, and then you have your secondaries. And then as soon as I get my part dry, I'm going to put that little valve back on here and hook all this up. So in the meantime, what I'd like to do is kind of walk you through my dirty shop. Stand by, everybody. I'm sorry. How do I get this thing to let go? Let go of my phone. Oh, I gotta squeeze it. All right. So I want. Hi. And then I'm gonna walk you through. I'm gonna grab my flashlight, and I'll show you where all these vacuum lines are on the car itself. I gotta turn on my light and make sure that I don't blind myself by it. Okay, so I'm gonna flip this around. Woo. Flip the camera around here. All right, here's the engine bay. And here's some additional light. So, your primary fuel injectors sit right here, right underneath of this. So I've got 1 and 2. And then as you can see, there's gonna be, I don't know if you can see it down in there, but you see the primary fuel injectors, and then there's a vacuum line that runs between those guys. It is this vacuum line right here. So if we follow that guy, it's going to be right in there. Can't really see much. All right, and then over here, you'll see this vacuum line. These are your secondary fuel injectors. And then there's a line that goes here, and it connects over here, and then it connects over here. So those are where you want those two, the injector secondaries here, and then your injector primary here will go in those vacuum ports. And then I have them all brought up over here. So this goes to coolant on the throttle body. This goes to the the OMP, the oilers. All right, this one here is going to the, what was that? These go to, I dropped, luckily I hit the floor. This is my primary fuel injector vacuum line. This is my secondary fuel injector vacuum line. And then over here, I got this line right here. This went kind of in another area on the lower intake manifold. That's going to the fuel damper, and that's where the factory had it going to their fuel damper or their fuel pressure regulator. So I have it looped around going, I'm gonna back out. Ooh, try not to make everybody too sick. Okay, I'm gonna come back around here. This is gonna be my fuel pressure regulator, and it's gonna be the vacuum line going right here on the top, and it's kind of helping to control this fuel damper on there. And then I have the MAP sensor. Remember I was talking about the MAP, okay, manifold absolute pressure. I got this vacuum line coming down and around, and it's loose here because it's going to plug into a port on the back of the upper intake manifold. Do you remember in my last video, guys, I did that fuel line? Right there it is. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? And then I have another one over here. I'm so proud of these things. They turned out really, really nice. But kind of talk a little bit about those. And want to make sure that it's crucial because not all vacuum lines are the same. Some pull in a different direction inside the intake manifold, and that will change the way the vacuum is controlled or pulled. Some of it has less vacuum, some of it has more vacuum based upon throttle position and everything else. So I had a lot of them wrong on this car. It could have been some air issues or fueling issues and other things. So I went ahead and followed the manual as much as I can based upon the stuff that I still have left under the hood of the car that didn't come from the factory, and plumbed it necessary. So I know this was a really long video. Apologize, but hopefully it helps everybody out. Until next time, later.